Welcome back here to the Whole Nine Yards on a Thursday afternoon. Drew Pien here with Brandon Krikorian. Brandon, how's it going?
It's going good. Nothing else really to say, honestly.
Lots of stuff. NFL, MLB, NBA, all of it. Award prediction video today. Predictions as usual for the NFL. MLB playoffs, obviously. We'll spend some time on that and probably talk about that more in a different episode as well. We'll start NFL. Do we want to start with predictions? Right now, if you didn't watch the episode we did Sunday night, which I will have in the description, check that out. Brandon is 17-7-1, and I am 12-12-1 for our predictions against the spread this year. So overall, not horrible, not bad. I guess we'll just get into them.
Yeah, so you want me to start?
Sure.
All right. My first game for this week is Vikings at Panthers. I have -1.5 from Minnesota. I think it's just a really good matchup. I actually kind of do like the games this week, unlike last week. But for this game in particular, I think the Panthers, like we said, they started 3-0. Obviously, they've lost their last two, haven't looked good. They lost against a really bad Eagles team last week. The Vikings have been playing better. They're now 2-3, even though they barely beat the Lions last week. But I still feel like they're the better team in this. I think their offense will be able to put up yards and points against the Panthers. Again, that defense really wasn't number one in the league like it was through the first 3 weeks. It's probably somewhere in the middle of the pack, to be honest. And I think they'll put up points. And then I think we saw with Darnold, without Christian McCaffrey, he struggles. I don't think McCaffrey's playing in this game, so. Yeah, I think it's a good matchup for the Vikings, and even though they're on the road, I think they're still the better team, and yeah, I expect them to win by more than 1.5 points.
I'm taking the exact same game, but I'm picking Carolina. Carolina's 2 losses, while they are the 2 most recent weeks, they were also against 2 mobile quarterbacks. Kirk's obviously not mobile. I don't expect the Panthers to drop 3 games in a row. It's possible, but I like Sam Darnold, and I like this Panthers team. I think they're competitive every game, almost no matter what. I like Matt Rule, and I think at some point this Vikings team has to start not being like 500. Maybe with Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer, you're just destined for 500 every single year. But I'm going to take the Panthers to win this game, and I'll take them to win by at least a field goal.
All right, so we're different there. For my next game, Packers at Bears, -4.5 for the Packers. That's what I'm taking. Again, it's kind of similar to the last game I took, but it's, I think, on a different level because I think the Packers are one of the better teams in the NFC, and the Bears even they won last week, they won the week before as well, but it wasn't convincing wins. Who really knows what happened to that Raiders game last week with obviously the Gruden stuff. For them to only put up 9 points was pretty pathetic, and they played the Lions the week before that. So I still don't have trust in this offense for the Bears. Fields still hasn't looked like anything good. I think he's just he's taking what the defense is giving him, but without Montgomery as well, he's on injured reserve. I think their running attack is going to be a lot less potent than it was with Montgomery. And even though the Bears have a good defense, I think the Packers, they just have a better offense. So I put my trust in Rodgers in this game. Division game on the road, for sure, it could be tough, but this definitely seems like a game, especially after last week with the Packers, where they somehow barely won against the Bengals. I think they're going to come into this game and put some points up in this game, and I think it's going to be a dominant performance from the Packers. So 4.5 for the Packers.
Yeah, it was a game I was scared to touch just for division on the road type of game. I didn't want to bet on the Packers again after them kind of not necessarily failing me last week. But next game, I've got the London game, Dolphins versus Jaguars. Jaguars are 3-point underdogs. I'm taking Miami. The line seems pretty small to me. I know it's London. I know London games can be unpredictable because, it's not in the U.S. And it's at 9:30 in the morning or whatever. But I do think that the Dolphins are the better team. Now they've not had a great season so far. They've got 1 win and it came in week 1. They've lost 4 straight and they've looked ugly in pretty much all 4 of the games. But I just think the Jaguars are really bad. I don't like Urban Meyer. I know people that have watched this show know that. I like Lawrence, but this is Lawrence. It's Lawrence's 6th NFL game, and it's his first game in London. I I don't see how the Jaguars can keep this close as long as the Dolphins can be somewhat competent on offense. Like, if they can be not awful on offense, even if they can just be like below average on offense, I still think they can win this game by more than 3. So I'm going to take the Dolphins win by a touchdown.
Yeah, again, that was another game I was looking at, but the London aspect kind of scared me away from it. Just, it's so unpredictable what happens in those games. But moving on to my third game.
I'm also not sure I'll wake up for that game, but
yeah, that's also another question. So you may just wake up and it's like the third quarter or something. But moving on to my third game, and I see on your list you also have this game, but Rams at Giants. The line's minus 9.5. In favor of the Rams, obviously, and that's what I'm taking. It almost seems too easy, maybe. Jones. It looks like Jones is going to play, which was, so out of the question when he got injured on Sunday that he was going to play this week. But he was practicing, I think, yesterday, and Joe Judge didn't even realize that he was practicing. They told him in his press conference, so it looks like he's going to play, I would say, but I think even if he does or he doesn't, I think the Rams are still going to smoke him. The last time they played the Giants in New York, different teams, obviously, but it was only 3 years ago, I think it was. They won like 54-7 or something like that. Not saying that has any correlation to this, but, it just shows how much better the Rams are. This team is better than that team, and the Giants are probably worse than the team that they were. I think that was 2018, so yeah, I just have so much confidence in the Rams. Coming off, obviously they have an extended week playing that Thursday game against the Seahawks last week. No Barkley. Doesn't look like Galladay's going to play. I don't know about Shepard and Slayton, but again, even still, I think that the Rams are just going to smoke them. 9.5, I don't think that's a problem for them to cover. And I'm assuming you took the Rams as well. I'm assuming you kind of saw the same stuff I did.
Yeah, whether or not Jones plays, if Jones doesn't play, even better. If he does play, I still think 9.5 is a pretty small number for this game. Pretty much everything you said. It's not that I love the Rams. I do like the Rams, but I just don't like the Giants. We saw them play the Cowboys last week, and they kind of kept it close, but they unraveled. And I think if the Giants get out to an early deficit, that I don't know that they can just, throw the ball and not turn it over like 3 times. So
yeah, and again, even that game last week, I touched on it in my Cowboys episode. You can check that out on the Whole 9 Yards Clips channel. But it was 10-10, but it easily could have been 20-7 at any point. We had 2 turnovers, 1 in the red zone. So obviously that game could have been a lot different, and it still was a 24-point game. So yeah, I think we're both in agreement there. But moving to my fourth game, I have Chiefs at Washington. The line is minus 6.5 for the Chiefs, and I think this is the game where the Chiefs they show either the Chiefs and the team that we were expecting them to be. Again, on the road. I think every single one of my picks is actually on the road, but this is coming off the loss last week. Obviously, a really tough game against the Bills. It's not an easy game, obviously, but this is a game where you're on the road, but you're playing a Washington team that just isn't that good. Their defense isn't obviously as good as it was last year. Their offense, they can move the ball a little bit, but I don't trust them to move the ball. Honestly, and even against a really bad Chiefs defense. We'll see what happens. Maybe at the end of the game they put some points together, but yeah, I expect the Chiefs to put up like 40 points, honestly. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on IR, so we'll see what happens with the running attack, but I feel like the backup, who's the backup, like Darnell Williams or Damian Williams, whatever Williams it is. I don't think it's going to be that much of a drop-off. I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is that good. And I expect Hill to have a monster game, to be honest. He was kind of quiet last week. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the Chiefs are going to blow him out. That's kind of what I'm expecting.
As far as me and the Chiefs, I'm just scared to bet on the Chiefs because I genuinely think their defense right now is awful. I think it can become better, but I thought it was going to be like a wake-up call thing, and then eventually, like whether it be week 4, 5, 6, 7, that they would just kind of return to Super Bowl form. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than that. I think they'll probably need to make an acquisition before the deadline. I think that they're probably going to need more time to gel. They're probably going to have to realize some veterans on their team aren't playing very well, and they just frankly need to be sat or benched or whatever. I think it's going to be week 13, 14 that we see this defense turn into what it should be, which is at least around the 22nd best defense, but is a playmaking defense, which means they're not like they're not really a bend don't break defense. They're more of like a you're going to score or we're going to try to make a play, and I think that's what they should be or should try to be. I think it's going to take them a while to get there, but yeah, I think the 6.5 is a fair line anyways. My next game is Chargers at Ravens. Baltimore is favored by 2.5, and I'm taking Baltimore. I like both of these teams. I think the Chargers have been pretty hot. I think Herbert's due for a little bit of a down game. I think the Chargers themselves are due for a little bit of a down game. I think the Chargers defense is not great against the run, and obviously the Ravens are the premier running team in the over the past 20 years or whatever. Did they keep that streak alive? I don't think they did. No. So I don't think that really matters, though. I mean, this team is a lock for 100 yards rushing, essentially. 43 of the last 44 times or whatever. So I'm happy they lost that streak, by the way. I wasn't sure if they had gotten it at the end of the game. I knew they were pretty far out in the third quarter, but I hate that streak. John Harbaugh, the fact that he did that 4-yard rush still is just so cringe. But yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens to win by more than 2.5. So...
Yeah, they finished with 86 yards, so I guess they were kind of close. But, yeah, I'm kind of surprised you took that game, only because I looked at that as well, and I think it's just two really good teams going against each other, so it's just hard to pick one team or the other. But, yeah, that was a game that I definitely looked at. But I guess before I get to my last game, one game I was probably going to go with was Texans at Colts. The line was -10 for the Colts, and I was going to take the Texans. But Tunsil's not playing, and Tyrod's not playing this week. I think he's playing next week, so that kind of put me off that game. Because, I mean, even though the Texans showed against the Patriots that they can fight against a team like that, I mean, I don't know. I think that's just huge loss. I mean, I know Tyrod wasn't playing the last couple of weeks, but, it looked like he was going to play this week, and then for him not to. But
do you have any thoughts on Davis Mills or no?
I mean, I haven't really watched enough games to know, but I mean, for a third-round guy, I don't think he's looked terrible. I mean, he definitely could have looked worse for a team that, it really isn't that good, obviously. They're obviously one of the, bottom 3 teams, I would say. I don't think he's looked terrible. I mean, he's kept them in a couple games. Yeah, does he have the turnover, take the dumb sack, make a bad decision? Sure. But he's a rookie, third-rounder. Obviously wasn't even expecting to play this year. So, yeah, I don't think he's been terrible.
I don't think so either. There's been a discussion, essentially... Obviously, Mac Jones was taken 15th, Parsons was 11th, but let's just say the Patriots either trade up 5 spots, which was 100% possible, or something like that. Maybe Parsons falls, but essentially a Parsons type of guy. You could have had essentially Parsons in the first if you're the Patriots, and then Mills in the second/third, or Mac Jones in the first. I mean, I'll talk about it in the podcast in my Patriots channel. Link in the description. Will be up by the time you watch this video, but. An interesting question, one that I thought was interesting, even though Jones has set some records for completion percentage, not set some records, but is on pace, I guess. Still just an interesting question because Parsons has been ridiculous so far. So
yeah, and that's something we could probably maybe look back at maybe at the end of the season or something. But speaking of Parsons and Jones, we both have the same game for the last one, obviously going with different teams, but yes, Cowboys at Patriots. -3.5 is the line that I got. I think that's the one that you got as well. It was -4 almost the whole week, but I checked it today. It was -3.5, so I'll take it. Yeah, I mean, I'm taking the Cowboys, obviously. I think that, no matter what the line is, I'd probably take them. I just think that right now, the way that they're playing, there's really I don't see this Patriots team stopping them. And, again, they have a good defense for sure. But unless they're not getting pressure on Dak, or we'll see what they do with the safeties. Again, this was the talk is if you do 2 high safeties, we're just going to run the ball on you. And I don't know exactly what the Patriots' run defense is this year. Obviously, you know better than me. But, if they play 2 safeties high, we're going to run. And if they bring a safety down, we're going to pass. So it's, pick your poison. Either one I'm okay with because we've rushed for average of 200 yards the last 4 weeks. And obviously, passing-wise, we can easily throw for 400 yards. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with this game. And our defense, we're going to give up yards for sure. I think Mac's probably going to have a pretty good game, in my opinion. I think he's going to be efficient. We'll see if he makes a turnover or not. But I think he's going to be efficient. I think he's going to have a good game. But I just think our offense is going to score too many points. And I think there will come a time where Mac does make a bad decision. He does create that turnover. And then the game flips at that point. This
is not a game I would touch if I had the option to not touch it. Although, I don't have the option of not touching it this week because of what we agreed to or whatever. Everything in the past 5 weeks would lead you to pick Cowboys 100%. If you took away the 2 names of the teams and the 2 names of the coaches, I think this line would not be 3.5 in my opinion. Maybe it would be, but I don't think so. The Patriots have really not shown anything. They should not have won that game against the Texans. They should be 1-4 with 1 win against the Jets. Now, the reason to pick the Patriots, and I really didn't know who to pick. I could go either way, really. I went with the Patriots just because I'm down, and maybe that'll help me get back up in the records and the standings or whatever. It's at the end of the day, and I don't, want to be mean, but do I trust the Cowboys to stay as the Cowboys? I know it's a Week 6 game, so it's like it doesn't really, matter. Like, do I trust the Browns to be the Browns or whatever, or do I not trust the Browns to be the Browns? I don't know. I trust Belichick, even though he's not had a good first 5 weeks of the season. I don't trust McCarthy. McCarthy. I know. I didn't mean to. But I don't know how you feel about Kellen Moore plus McCarthy. I feel I don't want. I think they might get too cute this game. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but what do you think?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think Kellen Moore. I mean, I've been watching their press conferences all week. Yeah, they may try something again, like that play last week with the touchdown to Zeke, like that was a wrinkle play that we've never seen. So maybe they try something like that, maybe. But I don't know. I think Moore has complete control of the offense. I don't think McCarthy has a say. Maybe at the end of a game or something. But I think like 95% of the time it's Moore's call, and I've total confidence in him. And honestly, I mean, I know it's Week 6, but we'll see at the end of the season what happens. I mean, he's gonna get a head coaching job at the end of this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Cowboys just hire him. I mean, we'll see how the season ends, but that's going to be an interesting story because if he leaves, I'd rather him not leave, to be honest.
You'd rather get rid of McCarthy and then.
And I don't even hate McCarthy, but I think to let someone like Moore leave, and I saw the comparison to Sean Payton when he left, because he was supposed to be the next head coach, for the Cowboys, obviously. Then he went to the Saints. Then we all know how that went. So, you'd rather have that not happen again, because I think you would probably agree. If Moore goes to be a head coach, he's going to be one of the better young head coaches, and he's, he clearly has complete control of an offense, like a Kyle Shanahan, a Sean McVay. Like, that's what he'd be compared to. Again, he's only 32, 33, somewhere in that range. So, I mean, yeah, I'd rather him not go, even though I don't think McCarthy's doing a terrible job at, but it's just hard to let someone like that go.
I've always been team get rid of McCarthy, so I would not be mad at it.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it either, but I mean, it's a really tough call.
My only scare with Moore is that he's a coach that just has his face stuffed in the playbook and doesn't care about, or not doesn't care, but just doesn't have the awareness to be a great game manager with timeouts, clock management, just stuff like that. There's a reason that typically, like when we saw Gruden get fired, that the special teams coordinator becomes the interim head coach, because typically they kind of just, the offense and defense coordinators can worry about their side of the ball, and the special teams coordinator can kind of just manage the game. But I think sometimes when you get a guy, even though like Shanahan, McVay, all these guys are great, sometimes I worry about that. But yeah, no, I would 100%, if it came down to that, take Moore over McCarthy. I know it's hard to do that. I don't know if like that's even that realistic. Like, would it be realistic for the Cowboys to even do that, or?
I mean, I think it'd be really weird. Like, again, you have to see how the season ends. Like, do you lose in a divisional round? Do you lose in a championship game, Super Bowl game, whatever?
I mean, what if you just, let's say, what if you win the Super Bowl but Moore calls like an outstanding Super Bowl?
Like, he's just insane the rest of the season. Like, it's clearly like he's like the next guy up. And
I mean, let's just say it's similar to the Falcons year, where Shanahan was the offensive coordinator for that team. Quinn was the head coach, but I mean, you knew that it was Shanahan that was driving that offense.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't have a problem either way, but it's just tough to know that he's going to leave at the end of the season, and he's probably going to be a really good head coach somewhere else. And you just had this guy in the building. Again, he was a quarterback for us since 2015. And then he's been the offensive coordinator the last 3 years. So it would be tough to lose a guy like that, especially considering, he's on that path to being one of the better coaches. So it's going to be a really interesting decision because, again, I don't think McCarthy's doing a bad job. The clock stuff's somewhat of a problem, but I think last year no training camp, no OTAs, everything obviously losing Dak, and then this year you're seeing what the team can do. But yeah, it's going to be a really tough decision. In my mind, I'd probably keep Moore, to be honest. Like, I would make him head coach, but
I would agree.
And again, I think Dak's gonna have some influence in that. I think Dak likes Kellen more better than Mike McCarthy, but yeah, we'll see at the end of the season what happens.
Yeah, okay, one sentence. So why I'm picking the Patriots, I didn't really explain that. I trust Belichick more than I trust McCarthy. I still trust McDaniels more than I trust Moore, even though Moore's probably better than McDaniels at this point. And I just trust the Patriots organization more than I trust the Cowboys. Now, with that being said, I could easily see the Cowboys winning this game. On paper, they're a top 5 talented roster, and the Patriots are probably bottom 15. But yeah, okay. So that's our predictions. We have one of our games are the same, and then 2 of our games we picked the same game but different teams.
Yeah.
So
the only one that we can both win on is the Rams, and I just got an alert. We were going to do baseball after this anyways, but I did just get an alert that the Cardinals fired their manager. So that was just some baseball news I just saw right now. But, we have one game that's the same, and that's the Rams.
Interesting.
So I kind of maybe just jumped the gun right there, but do we want to just talk MLB right now and save NBA for last?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't really have too much to say about it unless you have something to say about it.
Well, I guess I'll say just a couple quick things. I'll start with the game that's tonight. I mean, I guess I don't know if this episode's going to be out the day we're filming it or not, but probably not. But, today's Thursday, the Dodgers-Giants Game 5, the NLDS is tonight. And the Dodgers are actually going with an opener tonight. So Urias is going to pitch, but it's at least going to be Corey Knebel for the first inning. I would assume only the first inning, and then Urias for the next, 5 innings or whatever. But that's just something interesting because it kind of messes up the Giants lineup. Obviously, when you're facing a lefty, you can just stack with righties. So then Knebel's obviously a righty. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I guess, do you want to just make a pick on this game? We both had the Dodgers winning this series. But
I'm going to pick the Dodgers.
You're going to pick the Dodgers tonight?
Pick the Dodgers, yeah.
I want to see the Dodgers. I mean, it's not like I want to see the Dodgers win, but I think they're the better team, and I think it probably would be better if they were to win, but it's close. I mean, Logan Webb was insane in the game 1 of this series, and I think he's owned the Dodgers so far this season. So I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna pick the Giants. I just changed my mind. I know.
Okay.
I'm changing my mind. I'm picking.
Then I'll go Dodgers then. I was maybe gonna go Giants before you said that, but I'll go Dodgers. I have confidence in them.
I mean, yeah, you clearly do. After almost, you were going.
Well, I mean, you picked the Dodgers.
I know. I'm just saying. I have confidence in both of these teams. But so my only thing is the decision to start Knebel, because I know this is something I was thinking about specifically with the Rays is, let's say he gets first inning, 3 pitches, 3 outs. Are you just taking him out no matter what, or?
Well, I mean, maybe in a situation like that, you put him back.
Because the Rays are a team that, if they were in the situation, the 3-pitch, 3-out first inning, they're taking him out.
Yeah, they will.
And I think the Dodgers, and listen, this is what most baseball teams would do. I know the Rays are kind of like super extreme when it comes to the analytics, but I think the Dodgers probably will too. And I don't agree with that.
I mean, if it's 3 pitches, like if it actually is, I mean, it's most likely not going to be, but let's say it is. I would say they at least put him out for the second inning, and I would say the first time he gives up a base runner, he's just pulled out immediately. Like then Urias comes in. Like, because if he can give you 2 innings of just scoreless baseball and no trouble, of course you take that. But it just shortens the lineup more for Urias. Because then again, he could pitch 4 innings, and then you're already past the 6th inning already, and you only use 2 guys. Like, just think, and then he doesn't have to face the top of the that's the whole point of an opener, is that you don't have to face the top of the order. 3 times. You only have to face them twice. So, if it's a situation like that, I would actually be really surprised. Even if it's, I would say anything less than like 5 pitches, I would say he stays in. But anything more than that, I could easily see them taking him out.
And would you agree with that? Let's say it's like 16 pitches, but.
Well, 16 pitches, that's too much. That just is. They'd have to take him out at that point. It may sound ridiculous, but they just would. And maybe I don't agree with that, but I know they would take him out.
I'm not saying no, they're going to. Like I think there's a good chance they would at 3 pitches. So
I think 3 pitches is probably a little low. I would like I said, I think maybe like 8 pitches is maybe the limit, I would say. And maybe and if it's even if it's like a 4 or 5 pitch inning, but like they hit 3 line drives, then they probably still would take him out. So whatever. I guess we'll see. But yeah, he's at least going 1 inning, maybe 2. At least pitches a second inning, depending on the first. But yeah, it's gonna be Urias versus Webb tonight. You're going Giants. I'm going Dodgers. Obviously, it's in San Francisco, so we'll see how the weather affects it. Again, it's going to be windy. It's going to be cold. The ball's not going to fly out of there. Obviously, a pitcher's park as well, so we'll see. We'll see what this final score is. But it's going to be a good game. And then, the Braves, they beat the Brewers in 4 games to move on to the NLCS. Kind of surprising. I mean, I think, it wouldn't have been a surprising pick to pick the Braves, but for them to lose game 1 to go against that trio of pitchers that they have, then to win the next 3 games was super impressive. And then Freddie Freeman hits the game-winning homer. Wasn't a walk-off, but the game-winning homer against Josh Hader. So that was not totally expected, I would say, a Game 4 victory for them.
It sucks for the Braves because I don't think anybody would pick them regardless of who comes out of the series.
They're the underdog in whoever wins, yeah.
And I would be shocked if somehow the Braves made it to the World Series over either of these teams, whichever one wins, but
I would be very surprised as well. But it just shows, the Braves, they start off slow and they lose Acuna, and, they still went for it, and now they're in the NLCS. So it just proves that, you never really know what could happen. You lose your best player, and then you lose your best pitcher. Your other all-star outfielder was suspended for the year. So, it looked like they were going to just, probably pack it in at all-star break when Acuna got injured, and, they're in the NLCS. So,
yeah.
It just shows that you could still make it far if you actually do go for it. But that's the National League side.
I want to do so my very, very, very quick. This is how I think the Dodgers game is going to play out. I've made this up in my mind. Knebel goes 3 pitches, 3 outs in the first inning. Urias gives up 3 runs in 2 innings. Gets through 2 1/3. The Dodgers can't get much going offensively till the 7th or 8th. They try to rally. Betts is in a huge spot, maybe in the 8th or something, and strikes out, and then that's pretty much the ball game. That's my prediction.
So you think it's like a 3-0 game or something?
I think it's like a 3-1, 4-1, 4-2, something like that. I think the Giants have a 2 or 3 run lead. Betts is maybe 1 out, runners on the corners, and runs into a double play or strikes out or something big.
I actually think it's going to be – I think it'll be, low scoring. Like I said, it's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. The ball's not going to travel. But I think that it's going to be probably 3-1 or 3-2 Dodgers. And, they're going to kind of be up by 2 runs the entire game. Then, the 7th or 8th inning, the Giants maybe get a runner across. And then in the 9th when Jansen comes on, they probably get a runner or 2 on. And then it comes down to, if you get strike someone out, get a double play, get a pop-up. But I still think they win. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a close game for sure. There's just no way that the two best teams in the major leagues this year in a Game 5, it's not a close game. So yeah, but yeah, you have Giants, I have Dodgers. We'll see. But moving to the AL, both these series ended early, but the White Sox and the Astros series, the Astros pretty much handled that entire series. Even the game they lost, that was the first game the White Sox got hot. But that lineup of the Astros is insane. They have 7 guys, I would say, that could easily be one of the star players on any other team in the league. So it's a crazy lineup. Their pitching's been good enough so far. We'll see how much that handles. Lance McCullers is missing the ALCS against the Red Sox. That's obviously the other team that won. So we'll see how that affects them, because obviously shortens your rotation, which wasn't a strength anyways. But yeah, they're playing the Red Sox. You probably have some opinions on that Red Sox winning series. You didn't want them to win, but they did win. So what are your thoughts on it?
I'm happy for the real Red Sox fans that the Red Sox won the series. But yeah, no, I was not wanting them to win the series. I don't love the Rays either. I don't think anybody really loves the Rays and the way they manage the game. I guess I just get straight into a prediction here. I know I predicted Astros in the World Series, but I'm predicting the Red Sox to win the series. I'm predicting the Red Sox to win the series in 7. Why? This team is awfully familiar to 13 and 18. which were relatively, 13 much more than 18.
Yeah, I would say probably 13 more than 18.
13 much more than 18, but even a little bit of 18 still, where you just kind of maybe not as much 18, but 13 for sure. Like, you get players in career years, random signings. They had, like, Napoli, Martinez. This year, they've got Renfro. They've got, I'm blanking, but they've got Kike. They've got a bunch of other guys similar to that on relatively short deals, guys that you thought would just kind of be, like, platoon players or core players to your roster. Without them, you're not in the playoffs. And I think they're hot at the right time. And I think Cora, I don't know what it is necessarily about Cora, but when he's not being cocky and arrogant, he's a pretty good manager, and he finds a way to get the best out of his players. As far as will there be an advantage or disadvantage for either Cora or the Astros, because Cora was obviously with the Astros before he was with the Red Sox? I don't think so. If there would be an advantage, I think the Red Sox would have the advantage, though, because Cora has been in both systems, whereas the Astros guys have not been with the Red Sox, although they do know Cora relatively well. I think the cheating narrative is interesting. Both of these teams have been caught cheating. Obviously, the Astros are probably bigger offenders than the Red Sox, but still. But yeah, I think the Red Sox are just hot. Listen, they were hot at the beginning of the year. They fell off. Clearly, they almost fell out of the playoffs, which nobody would have thought in July. And now they're back, and now they're here, and I think they're pretty hot, and it would not surprise me if the Red Sox won the series. Their pitching's a concern. I think the Astros pitching is also a concern too, but I think the Red Sox pitching is the concern. But if their rotation can get them through enough innings, because their bullpen's pretty thin, I think they'll be fine. So I go with the Red Sox in 7.
Yeah, I'm definitely debating between. I actually think the Red Sox will win this series. It kind of does seem like there's some magic or whatever behind this team.
It's BS. It's like, why does it have to be the Red Sox?
Yeah, I think it's the core effect, to be honest. But I don't know. I think the Astros are the better team, but it's going to come down to whose starting pitching is better. Because, like you said, neither team has good starting pitching. I think that maybe the Red Sox has better, especially with McCullers being out, only because you have Evaldi, who's definitely shown in the playoffs he can be good. Sale, he can be hit or miss.
Sale's he's like the swing whatever.
Yeah, as long as he can get you 4 or 5 innings, you're so happy with that.
But that's a legitimate concern though. I think that's probably the X factor of this series is if Sale can give you anything, then I think you like the Red Sox. If he can't, which I think there's a chance he can't for sure. Yeah. I mean, in the playoffs, even when I don't know if you'd say he's not in his prime right now. Even when he was in his prime in the playoffs, he was not good. So I don't know, but
yeah, I think that's who it's going to come down to. Is if he's like you said, if he's going to be at least good, 4 or 5 innings, strong innings. Yeah, I mean, for sure, I think they definitely have the better shot at winning. But this Astros lineup, like I said, it's just ridiculous. The Red Sox have a good lineup as well, but from top to bottom, I think the Astros is better. And yeah, I think it goes 7, but honestly, I really could see it going 6. I think I'm going to take Astros, and I think I might take them in 6, to be honest. I think there's going to be a game where the Red Sox probably should win. They're winning the entire game. They should win this game, and somehow the Astros come back, and then that's just a gut punch. Maybe it's a tied series, and then the Red Sox could have went up 2-1, but now it's the Astros up 2-1, and that just kills them. Something like that. I could definitely see that happening. So, would I be surprised if it goes to 7? Obviously not. But yeah, I think Astros in 6. It's going to be a really tight. It's two teams that are very similar. Two really good offenses, decent pitching staffs, and then the bullpens aren't amazing either for either team. So it's two very similar teams, and both have a lot of playoff experience as well. And I think it just comes down to that starting pitching, to be honest. And yeah, I think the Astros are just going to come out on top. And I think as a Yankee fan, I think I have to root for the Astros. So I can't root for the Red Sox.
I think you root for somehow just both of these teams to not I don't know what. I think you hope for both teams look bad, because
but one team's still going to win and go to the World Series. So I'd rather have that be the Astros, because you know what, the cheating thing, but for the Red Sox, let's say they make the World Series, let's say they win the World Series, that would be 5 championships in the time that the Yankees have won 1. I mean, that's just so much of a deficit. How can you even say anything to that? The Astros, it's whatever. I mean, they're in the AL West. It's a rivalry, but you see them twice a year.
I mean, I think you could legitimately listen. This is. I mean, I don't know if this even qualifies as a take, but if it does qualify as a take, it's a hot take. I mean, I think you can argue Yankees Astros is a bigger rivalry than the Yankees Red Sox.
I mean, maybe right now because of obviously what happened the last couple of years. But if you're to look back, in history in the past,
well, yeah.
But even still, I mean, like again, like I didn't grow up. Like I wish I was able to watch those early 2000s series. Again, I was 3 years old when that happened. So that was probably the last time that they've really just battled each other. Because the last couple of years, the Red Sox are clearly the better team. In 18, they beat us in the division series, and then obviously in the wild card this year. So, it's not close in that aspect. But yeah, I mean, I would say maybe.
I think a lot of it just comes down to personality. Like, there's just not much rivalry, bad blood between the Yankees and Red Sox right now. I think it's very easy for teams to have rivalry / bad blood with the Astros, which is why I think. I mean, yeah, I just think the Yankees Astros.
Yeah, but that does also somewhat diminish it, only because the Dodgers can have an argument in that as well. While the Red Sox, it's like a clear rivalry between the two teams. While the Astros they technically could have rivalries with a couple teams because of the cheating.
No, they could. I just think if you took out the fact that we're talking literally Yankees Red Sox, like I don't think it's been that much of a rivalry as of recent.
No, I would agree with that. I definitely would agree with that.
And I'm not even saying that because the Red Sox have been the better team and won more championships. I just think it's because there's just not much, But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, and one last thing on that is I wouldn't be surprised if Yankee fans my age would probably root for the Red Sox. Like if you were to do a poll or whatever, I really wouldn't be surprised if it's more than 50% for the Red Sox actually. But yeah, I guess that's it for baseball. So we did our ALCS pick. We won't do our NLCS pick now, obviously, because we don't know who's going to win. But I would assume we'd probably go with whoever
Both
wins
of us
tonight,
are going to go with whoever wins this game.
Yeah, so. And that is what I would probably go with. Dodgers or Giants, whoever wins. But yeah, we'll see what the World Series looks like. Whether it's whoever it's between, but it's going to be good. And that starts. Boston Astros is tomorrow, Friday, and then obviously the NLCS will be on Saturday.
As far as pure entertainment, who do you want to come out of what's your ideal World Series matchup right now?
Well, Astros Dodgers.
Okay.
I think for entertainment value, I think even probably two best teams wise, I think that would be really good. Because the Astros, they're definitely coming to an end. They made 5 straight ALCSs, but Correa is going to leave in free agency, and they're probably going to falter a little bit. But yeah, obviously the 2017.
Yeah, I mean, you would have said that 2 years ago, though. So
I definitely would have said that 2 years ago. It was very surprising they made the ALCS last year, but they're going to lose Correa this year, and he's arguably their best player. So that'd be really after losing Springer, and then obviously their pitching staff is done basically. They have a couple young guys, but I think I'd be very surprised if they made another ALCS. To be honest, I think the only thing that helps them is that the division isn't great, so they can most likely get into a playoff spot. But I think the White Sox will be better. The Red Sox could be better. The Blue Jays are going to be better. The Rays are going to be there. The Yankees are going to be there. So, I think it would be very tough for them to get back to an ALCS.
I mean, you just listed 4 teams from one division.
Sure, I did, but you can also 3 teams in one division can make the playoffs. So
I know it's just harder,
and I think the White Sox will be better. So I think that also plays a factor.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Astros made another ALCS, but I would agree that they should theoretically only get worse. But I mean, listen, I thought the Yankees were going to be 101 team this season. They were not.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, NBA, exciting MLB stuff, exciting NFL stuff. The NBA. Board predictions for the whole 9 yards. I think this is like really, I don't know when the 1 year anniversary of our podcast would even be, but this is like the first topic I can remember talking about right now that we also talked about last year.
And we did that, I think it was December 2nd or somewhere around that. Somewhere in December is when we did that. I think the channel started in October, to be honest, but so maybe it's been 1 year already, I don't know. But yeah, this was probably like our biggest thing that we did, though, I would say.
Yeah. Anyways, so I guess we'll just start with awards.
Should we go from the bottom to the top or the top to the bottom?
You can start wherever you want to start, and I'll just follow you.
All right. We'll start from the bottom to the top. The least interesting ones, the more interesting ones, and I'm going to start with Coach of the Year. I went with Nate McMillan of the Hawks. I said this, I think, as soon as the playoffs ended last year, was that the Hawks were going to be the number 1 seed in the East, and I really still do believe that. I mean, the situation with the Nets and Irving, what are you giving me that look for? I still believe it because, and again, I'll say the reasons right now. I think the only team that can really compete with them is probably the Bucks, to be honest. Maybe the Heat, but probably the Bucks. The Nets, again, they're still a really good team, but the whole situation with Irving, I mean, yeah, it's good to still have KD and Harden, but, it's not going to be as lethal as it could have been. And also, KD's going to rest. Harden's most likely going to rest, a lot of times during the season as well. The Sixers, who knows what that situation's going on. And then, again, the Heat, like I said, the Bucks for sure, but do they really want to push it again after just making the finals and obviously in a little bit of an extended season? So we'll see. But, yeah, the Hawks, I think they're just primed for a really good regular season. We'll see about the playoffs. But, yeah, I really would not be surprised if the Hawks are even if they don't finish first, even if they finish second, but let's say they win like 54 games or something around that, maybe the Bucks finish first with 55, 56, I could see Nate McMillan getting it for sure. Because even in the West, I don't really know, I don't know if there's a team that's going to get like 55 wins. And if they do, it's going to be the Jazz? I don't know. I don't know I think Nate McMillan would get it more than maybe the Jazz or Quinn Snyder, which I should say.
I went with Budenholzer. I think the reason I went with Budenholzer is he's not a special coach at all. I'm not a huge Budenholzer fan, but I looked at the teams and I said, what teams do I think are locks to be a top 2 or 3 seed and pretty much a lock to be like a top seed. The Lakers are not. The Hawks are not. The Heat are not.
I know the Lakers aren't?
Yeah, no, they're not.
Okay.
Injuries?
I don't know. I think.
No, I think if they're all healthy, they're 100% going to be a really good team. But the Nets are not a lock to be a top seed. The Lakers could easily be a 4 seed, a 5 seed. I think. I think the Bucks are a lock to be a top seed, and they have to have a really good season because obviously Budenholzer is known for having insanely good regular seasons record wise. But to me, I wanted to go with the relatively safe pick, and I was looking. I didn't want to go with the odds favorite. I forget who was the favorite. I know Spoelstra was up there, but Budenholzer is actually pretty far down the list. So I went with Budenholzer. It doesn't mean that I like Budenholzer because I don't. We've seen really bad coaches win Coach of the Year. Dwayne Casey being one of those, who literally got fired the same year won Coach of the Year. So.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, again, that's a fine pick. Most improved player. I took Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and it's somewhat of a weird pick only because he had a really good year last year. He did miss a lot of time because of injury, and obviously the team wasn't good towards the end, so they kind of just sat him anyways. But, I forget exactly what his numbers were, but I think it was around 24 points per game, 23 points per game, and 7-7, somewhere around that. But, their team, they're still going to be one of the bottom teams in the league, so it doesn't help, obviously. You'd like to see him at least win a couple more games, at least somewhere around the somewhat competitive level, but I think he's probably going to be an all-star this year, so I think it's going to help, is that you at least get that national recognition that way. And I think he's just going to have a really good year, maybe even the same numbers, a little bit better, but he's going to be more efficient, he's going to be more the leader of that team, and again, the team's not really going anywhere, but I could definitely see it being someone else who's probably on a better team, and even maybe the numbers are better or whatever, but I think Shai he's a decent pick. But it's really going to come down to team success and how much the voters actually look at that and actually weigh that in on the pick.
I love Shai. The only problem is I don't know how much better his numbers can realistically get, and also his team is going to be a bottom 2 or 3 team in his conference.
Yeah,
and even if his numbers can improve, but unless they improve drastically, which means he's essentially in the MVP conversation. Which obviously wouldn't be, but numbers-wise he would be. Unless he has MVP-type numbers, his team's not going to be good enough, and I think it's tough because his numbers are already just really good, and he's already regarded as a really good player. I went with Michael Porter Jr. He is, I think, probably the favorite to win Most Improved Player right now. So it's not, a crazy pick. The reason is because Jamal Murray's injured. I don't know when exactly he's coming back. We'll find out, I guess. But even when he does, who knows what he's looking like. I truly believe that Michael Porter Jr. will be the second best team player on this team I don't know when it will be. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's sometime this year where we realize it. Maybe it's next year. Maybe it's the year after. I think at some point Michael Porter Jr. will be the second best player on this team, and he may be the closer, the guy you look to take a shot at the end of the game, or at least there with Jokic. It could be either one. So yeah, I think his numbers are going to look really good without Murray, and even when Murray gets back, if Porter looks like the second best player on this team, and maybe he can vie for an all NBA spot, it's going to be tough, obviously. But if he can get somewhere close to that, I think he can win this award. And I think he's set up to win Most Improved Player, which is really the thing you kind of look for when you're making a pick like this. Because, it's just tough to pick Most Improved Player.
Yeah, I think he probably is the favorite. I think it comes down to consistency, and then if he doesn't get injured. Because, Murray's... if Murray comes back, it's going to be the last 2 weeks of the season. So he's going to have basically the entire season as him being that second player to Jokic. So, yeah, he should. I think he averaged 19 a game last year, or 20. So, yeah, he should, probably get to that 22, 23, 24 range, I would assume, with him obviously taking more shots. So, yeah, I think he's definitely a really good choice. I think it's just consistency for him.
And how much does defense matter in Most Improved Player? I don't think it's – that's what – yeah, I think that helps him for sure.
Yeah. Moving on to Sixth Man of the Year, my pick is someone who actually just got recently a contract extension, Terrence Mann of the Clippers. I think the only question for him is if he's actually going to be coming off the bench and obviously playing starter minutes, but coming off the bench, or if he's just going to be in the starting lineup. Obviously, you don't have Kawhi, so it obviously takes a roster spot out of there. But based on the lineups that I was looking up for them and what their potential lineups could be, it seems like it's going to be Eric Bledsoe, Reggie Jackson, Paul George, Nicholas Batum, and Zubac. So it doesn't seem like he's going to be starting. Maybe that happens at some point because obviously Bledsoe is really not that good. But he's my pick. I think, look, he played 19 minutes a game last year. Then obviously in the playoffs he played amazingly. So he's obviously going to play starter minutes this year. I think he's going to have a lot bigger role in the offense, especially with no Kawhi as well. This Clipper team, will be interesting to see where they land in the standings. They're definitely not going to be a top 4, but they're probably going to be in that 5, 6, 7 range, I would assume. Even in a kind of middle of the pack West there. But yeah, I think he's a good pick. I think it just depends on if he's actually going to be coming off the bench or if he's actually going to be starting. And we can only see that when the season starts.
Yeah. My pick is Jordan Poole. I'm not going to act like I care about the NBA preseason, but when you make a pick like this, it's tough to really, get a pick that you're super, super confident in. I am confident in this pick, just like, it is still kind of a shot in the dark. But we've heard great things about Jordan Poole. And I do expect this Warriors team to be pretty competitive, much more competitive than last year. If this Warriors team is not a top 6 seed, I'll be surprised. And I think Poole will help contribute to that. I think he'll see some pretty solid playing time and should be able to get a lot of shots in there without Klay. And then with Klay, with a healthy Klay, I still think he'll have a pretty good part in the offense. So yeah, I'm going to go with Poole.
I think that's a good pick. I think the only problem is that he's most likely going to be starting for the first 2.5 months of the season because Thompson's not supposed to come back until at least January. So assuming he starts all those games, which I would assume he would, I don't think Kuminga or Moody is going to start. That could just push him out of it only because he'd be starting all those games.
Maybe.
But I still think it's a good pick. Like if he were to technically still register as 6-man, I think that's a good pick. Because yeah, he's going to be that scorer off the bench for them. Because again, Kuminga and Moody, they're just not going to be like those scorers off the bench right now. They're kind of be more like role players in my mind at least. But yeah, Poole's probably going to be that driving force of the second unit when you're either playing with Curry or you're playing with Thompson when he comes back. But we'll just have to see if he still registers for it. But Defensive Player of the Year. There's really only like 3 options every single year anyways, and that's obviously Gobert, Giannis, or like AD, I guess maybe Ben Simmons as well, but he's not even technically on a team right now, so I went with Giannis.
Well, he's technically on the team.
He's on a team, but like he's not playing. I went with Giannis though. I was gonna go with Gobert, but he won it last year, so. And I know people just hate Gobert, honestly, even though obviously he's really good defensively, and without him the Jazz wouldn't be as good as they are. But I don't know. I just went with Giannis. Honestly, it's such a dumb award to pick because it's going to be one of them, and you just don't even know who it's going to be, but it's going to be one of the 3 or 4 guys. So I just picked Giannis. I think we both went with 8, or at least I went with 80 last year, and then of course he got injured, so I'm not trusting him like I said, Simmons, who knows what's going on, and then Gobert won it last year, so it kind of just left me with Giannis.
I'm going with Gobert. It's not an exciting pick, but if you're trying to get exciting with Defensive Player of the Year, good luck with that. And I think, how can winning Defensive Player of the Year be bad or mean something bad for a player? Well, I think, listen, I don't know that Gobert being a Defensive Player of the Year is actually good for the Jazz. And it is good in the regular season, but listen, Gobert in a playoff scenario, he's just not a good player. He's just not. But listen, this award is not playoff based. So if Gobert plays how he has, he's going to be in that conversation. And unless somebody stands out, I know he's won the award before and he just won it last year, but it's so hard not to go with him because the Jazz are probably a lock to be a top 4 seed. And Gobert is a lock to be the best or second best player on that team. So it's tough.
Yeah, and honestly, he's won it 3 times already. And if this is 20 years ago, I would probably pick Gobert. But I just think and maybe this doesn't even play a factor, but at least I think it does. Is just the media aspect and the people on Twitter and everything. Just everyone just hates on Gobert so much, and I just think it plays a factor. You really want him to win it again. It's almost the MVP discussions. Really, it's you're gonna pick Giannis again, or kind of like that. That's just the way I look at it.
Voter fatigue.
Yeah, a little bit of fatigue because Giannis has a comparable season. Maybe Gobert is a little bit better. I could see him easily just picking Giannis, even though he did win it 2 years ago. But again, it's 2 years ago is so much longer than just last year. It's in that aspect that it seems like Giannis hasn't won it in 5 years.
I personally view Gobert and Giannis having equal amounts of voter fatigue, if you want to call it that.
I think Giannis is more for the MVP than the Defensive Player of the Year. He's last year Giannis could have won MVP, but of course he wasn't going to because he won it the previous 2 years.
No, I know. Definitely more so for MVP, but even for Depoy, I don't know, does anybody even keep track of who wins that award anymore? Everybody just knows that Giannis and Gobert win it. And, maybe AD if he stays healthy, maybe Draymond 5 years ago, Kawhi 8 years ago. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
I just view them as having equal voter fatigue. But I don't know. I just, that award's so boring. It shouldn't even be an award at this point.
Just get away with it.
Yeah. Rookie of the Year, though.
Rookie of the Year. And I see we both have different options. And, I'm going with Jalen Green. I said this when the draft happened. I think Mobley will be the best player out of this, the trio, honestly, but of course, obviously the whole draft. I think he's going to be the best player at the end of the day, but for Rookie of the Year, I think it's so clearly going to be Jalen Green. It's a team that's terrible, and even though he has Kevin Porter there, he's going to take a lot of shots as well. Jalen Green, you see in the preseason, he's going to have control of the ball almost all the time. He's going to take all the shots. He's going to do everything offensively. Again, defensively, who cares? It's Rookie of the Year. So, yeah, he's going to average probably north of 20 points. I'd say probably close to 25 points, in my opinion. Again, for a bad team, and he's the main focal point of the offense. It just, it almost just works out too good to be him. I think the only way he doesn't win it is if he gets injured. That's really the only way I see it. And I know you clearly see it a different way. So.
Listen, no, I think that could all happen for Jalen Green. I think he's a great scorer, maybe the best scorer in the draft, and he has superstar potential. But I think this Rockets team is and especially in the Western Conference, is destined to be a bottom 3 team. And it doesn't matter too much Rookie of the Year, but even if Jalen Green does average 25 points, it's going to be on 41% from the field, and he's probably going to shoot 33% from 3. And I know, again, listen, it's efficiency, and we're talking about Rookie of the Year, but we kind of saw this last year, which is you have LaMelo Ball, which he's not as good of a just raw point per game scorer than Anthony Edwards, but LaMelo transformed a team much more than Anthony Edwards did. Edwards, while he was a good scorer and showed flashes and maybe a superstar in this league, we don't know yet. Probably not, but we don't know yet. He didn't have the same flash and didn't have the same he didn't transform the team the same that LaMelo did. And does it help LaMelo's in the East and Edwards is in the West? For sure. But I'm picking Cade, by the way. Cade is in the East, and I know the Pistons are a bad team, but they have young talent on that team for sure. And I think if Cade can transform this team and put them in the race for the play-in spot, which probably won't happen, but if he can get them close to that, I still think Cade is just the best player from this draft class, which leads me to believe he'll win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I don't
think he needs to have better numbers than Jalen for him to win Rookie of the Year. I think he's all around. I know we've kind of laughed at defense so far when talking about these awards, but in Rookie of the Year, I mean, listen, it wasn't defense, but we saw that stats don't mean everything. So,
well, the one thing I'll say is, I think even if Cade has technically lower stats, he's not going to average as many points as Jalen Green. There's just no way. But the other aspects he will. I think the only way he could honestly really win it is if they are close to getting to a play, and obviously they're not going to. But if they're in contention, not as good as the Hornets were last year, because they actually were like the 8 seed until the last week. But if they're like a 11 seed, 12 seed, they're in that range, or at least in striking distance, I could see it possibly getting. The stats would still have to be pretty close to Jalen's, but I mean, I don't know. The Pistons definitely have some young talent, but
I think it's easier for Jalen Green's play style to win Rookie of the Year. But listen. I understand everything you're saying, but I just think Cunningham's the best player in this class, and I'm not sure it's all that close.
The only difference I think between this year and last year's race was that I think Green and Edwards are very similar in that they basically just score, and that's what they do. But I think Green's a better scorer than Edwards. And Edwards started off really slow last year, and then LaMelo got hot, and then that's what happened. And then the second half, LaMelo gets injured, Edwards gets hot. But, LaMelo is more like Cade where, they'll score, but they assist, they pass, they rebound. They're more of a leader of the team. But I think Jalen's more of he's going to be too flashy and too much of like a highlight reel, I would say. And I think the stats will back that up. So, I think I'm going more for that aspect of it, that path. For Jalen Green to win it. But I think Cade's still going to have a really good year for sure, but I think they do need to be in contention probably for him to win it. But we'll see what happens with that. But I think it's really between those two. I don't really see anyone else winning it, to be honest.
Maybe Jalen Suggs. You never know.
I think if he was on the Raptors, I think Suggs would probably win it. Or not win it, but he'd be in the race. Him on the Magic, there's no way. Even though I still think he'll be good, there's no way he's gonna, be in the race. But moving on to the last one. Well, I guess second to last one, but the last award one, MVP. I'm going with the same guy I went with last year, and that's Luka. If they didn't start off so slow, he definitely could have won it for sure because of his numbers. I think he was 29, 9, and 9 last year. This year, I expect the same thing. I expect him to be 30, 10, 10, he's right there in that range, basically averaging a triple-double. I think their team will be better. I think some people are kind of doubting them a little bit. I think they'll be actually a little bit better this year. Will they be a 1-2 seed? No. I think they could probably be a 4 seed, though. I think they could be a really solid 4 seed. The Nuggets faltering a little bit. We'll see about the Warriors. I see what your pick is. I don't know actually how good the record's going to be honest, but I think Luka's going to win it this year. Again, he's going to win at least one at some point. I think it should have been last year, but they started off slow. He started off slow. I don't think that's going to be the case this year, and I think Luka wins it.
I think I hopped on the Luka bandwagon too early last year, and bandwagon in terms of picking him for MVP. Obviously, I still love Luka as a player. I still think he's a year or two away. I don't know how good the Mavericks are going to be. If they're a 4 seed, can Luka still win MVP? Yes, but it makes it a little bit more tough. With that being said, I know this is going to sound a little bit hypocritical, but I'm going with Steph Curry. Listen, Steph Curry had an amazing year last year, and if he can recreate that year, maybe get just have a little bit slightly better of a year with Klay coming back at some point, Jordan Poole, like I mentioned, being a 6th Man of the Year candidate, if he can be that, maybe even better than that. Maybe he just starts and is amazing as well. Moody and Kuminga, if they can have immediate impacts, which I believe in Moody to have that. Kuminga, we'll see. Wiggins as well. This team can be good, and if this team's a top 5 seed, I think Steph Curry will have the numbers to win MVP. I know he's won it before, but that was 5-6 years ago at this point, 5 years ago. And I think the narrative for Steph Curry MVP is coming back because I think people may be forgetting how good Steph Curry is. I don't know. I know people have said that. I'm going to go with Steph Curry to win MVP. I could see Luka, though. I could see Luka. I could see other people. I could see KD. I could see Harden. I could see LeBron. I could see Jokic again.
Well, 2 things I'll say. One, the Warriors, I think the Mavs are better than the Warriors, and I just don't know where the Warriors rank in the standings. Like, will they be fighting with the Nuggets, a Grizzlies, a Blazers, those kind of teams where they're kind of at the bottom of that 8 and then maybe even 9, 10. I think he does have to finish top 5 in the West if he's going to actually have a real chance at MVP. Like, people saying he should have won it last year, that's ridiculous. I mean, like, even if they made the playoffs, they were an 8 seed. Like, there's no way an 8 seed should ever win MVP. No matter what happens that season, unless he averages like 50 points. But I don't know. We'll have to see. I think that we'll see what the role players do and everything. But the other guy I was actually looking at was Harden, though. I think he has a really good shot at winning it because his style of play is just so different with the Nets. Assuming he plays most of the games, he's probably going to give you like 22, and we'll see about the Irving situation, maybe even averages like 25 points per game, but he's going to get you like 11 assists, 8 rebounds. He's going to be so efficient. He's going to be so good with passing the ball. I think he has a really good shot. Like, the analytics people are going to love him. Like last year, like he had a little bit of momentum for MVP last year as well. So I think Harden's definitely like a dark horse, which is weird to say, but I think he probably is in this MVP race.
Yeah, I like Harden as a candidate too. The only concerns to me are, one, he's not the best player on his team. I'm not saying he can't win MVP because of that.
But do you think KD's going to play enough games to actually win MVP?
I'm not saying KD would win it. I'm just saying it's hard sometimes to justify giving an MVP to somebody who's not even the best player on their own team. And another concern, very small concern, but something that's possible is if Kyrie's not on this team, which it doesn't look like he's going to be, at least as of right now, does Harden justify changing his play style up a bit? If KD only plays, let's say, 50 games, 60 games, that means Harden probably has at least 30 games of he's by himself, which I would assume means a lot of iso ball, a lot of foul shots, a lot of Houston Rockets type gameplay, which is good. I'm just, if we're going to give Harden the MVP based on his, obviously, what would be great numbers and the narrative that he's changed so much as a player since coming from Houston, I'm just not sure that's going to be a thing.
Well, the thing I'll say is that I don't think it was just him leaving Houston. I think he always wanted to play like this, but I think so, and I think that they just never had. The only team they had it to do it around was with Chris Paul, but I think they just didn't like each other to the point where Harden said, "I don't feel like playing like this. I'll just play the way I've been playing the last couple of years here in Houston." So I think that if they had a different coach, if they had different players or whatever, he probably would have changed his way of playing. But when you play with KD, and obviously Kyrie, but KD, you have to change your game anyways. You can't play iso ball and take 30 shots a game and do whatever you want. So even if KD doesn't play in those games where it's just Harden, yeah, will he probably play more iso for sure. But I think he still will be kind of that playmaker role, but he's just going to take more shots. So I think it actually would work in his favor if KD doesn't play as many games, because I think his numbers would actually be boosted because of that, at least scoring-wise.
I mean, it could either be an advantage or a disadvantage, because if KD doesn't play a lot of games, then I think you see a lot of Harden from the Rockets. And I do think that's Harden's security blanket, whatever type of play style. I think if he starts to struggle, I think that's what he resorts to. I think that's what he would prefer to play. Now, I know he knows that it's best for him to be, again, like that kind of floor general playmaker, best point guard in the league type of guy. But without Kyrie, I think he can justify in his head to be the iso ball guy more so than not. Do I think it's going to be drastic? No. I still think the majority of the time when him and KD are on the floor and that Nets team is playing the Lakers in a primetime game on ESPN and they have a fully healthy roster, I think you will see the best version of Harden. But I think a lot of times you may see the iso ball, and I think when this Nets team struggles in the regular season, which it will because it doesn't have an insane amount of depth, a lot of its depth pieces are old, like Griffin, I think you're going to see sides of Harden that you wish were left in Houston. I still like Harden as an MVP candidate. I think he's a candidate. But, yeah, that's the reason I did not want to go with Harden over Curry. And I do kind of agree with the Warriors thing that they might not have a good enough record for Curry to win MVP, but I think the same thing could be said for Doncic. And I think I like the Warriors more than I like the Mavericks this year. So
I would have to disagree with that. I definitely like the Mavs more than the Warriors. But, I mean, hey, we'll see. I mean, maybe Thompson comes back, and maybe, I mean, again, I think the biggest X factor for the Warriors is Wiseman. I mean, if he could actually play and, like, show he could play NBA minutes, then, and be effective, then I think that just expands their team a lot more. But again, that's such a question mark. We don't even know what's going to happen there. But
I think the opposite of, well, I guess he's still an X factor, but like more so, I'm thinking like the opposite of an X factor is Jason Kidd for the Mavericks.
Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
Oh, for the Mavericks. I thought you said Warriors. Yeah. Well, you think like him actually being a good coach?
Yeah. I just think it's.
Well, it's definitely not hard to coach the Mavs. I mean, it's just give Luka the ball.
I mean,
So-
ask my boy Rick how hard it is to coach the Mavericks.
Well, I think he did a pretty good job, in my opinion.
I'm not telling you he didn't do a good job.
He also had nothing around him. I mean, your next best player is Porzingis, who is,
Okay, so now we're looking at. I mean,
Not the
that's
same
supporting my point, though. Is we're kind of starting to look at the flaws of this roster. You have Luka, who can carry you to a 5 seed, maybe, but
there's flaws in this roster for sure. But I think they're better than they were last year. I really do think that they are better than last year, even though it's pretty similar to the same roster. But I think they actually will be better. I have a lot of confidence in that.
I hope that's the case. But if I came in with that take, I'd be very scared of essentially doing the same thing I did last year, which I don't want to do, and I don't like Kidd. So
And
Carlisle was a guy I was actually thinking about for Coach of the Year. Not that that's related, but
yeah, I heard some people say that as well. But I don't think the Pacers they're not good enough to.
yeah, I don't think their roster's good enough, and I also am scared they just blow things up for some reason halfway through the
Yeah,
year.
that's always a question mark for that team as well.
You would assume not with hiring Carlisle because I don't think he's like trying to rebuild, but yeah.
But that's the award predictions. But we still have one more left. Finals predictions. I have Lakers Bucks, and I do not have the Nets in mine.
That's surprising. I mean, you have been the Nets guy.
I have been, and it is surprising for me to say this, but I think the Bucks are better. Honestly, I mean maybe if Irving, again, I'm assuming he's going to come back at some point. I mean, like if he gets it or doesn't get it, at some point the rules are gonna relax, and he's gonna come back at some point, especially for the playoffs. But there's always the injury concern for this team. There's always the I also just the fact that I think the Bucks are just better. I think they're better than they were last year. I think for sure. And obviously the Nets were injured in that series last year, and of course in my opinion, of course they would have won it if they were healthy. But I think the Bucks are better. I think they know that they can beat the Nets now. Again, it wasn't against a full strength team in the Nets, but I think they know that they can beat them. And I think Giannis has seriously taken it to another level, and I think he will be. He is I know KD technically is the best player now, but I think it's Giannis is going to be the best player. Like he is the best player in my opinion. Going forward, I think KD is probably for this year, but next year and on, it's going to be between Giannis and Luka. But I think it will be Giannis as the best player.
I don't disagree with anything you really said. My only problem is a lot of my questions about the Bucks weren't really answered in last year's playoffs. The main concern is, do the Bucks have a closer? And I still don't think that question's been answered. Listen, Middleton made some shots, but he proved that he's hot and cold. And he's streaky, and frankly, I don't trust him as a second option and a closer. He can't play. I just don't think he's good enough to play that role next to Giannis. I think you need better. Last year, it didn't really matter all that much. I mean, listen, you got to play the Nets without Harden and Kyrie, essentially without Harden and Kyrie. You got to play a Hawks team that was I'm not sure was ready for the moment, and even if they were, talent-wise, I mean, it's 6'11" Giannis versus 5'10" Trae Young. So your team was better than that team regardless. You didn't need a closer. And then in the finals, Middleton made some shots, but he did not instill any confidence in me going forward. He did not listen. You can laugh at that all you want.
He made some big shots in that series.
He made some big shots, but you don't tell me you were confident in making that. And if he was in that same scenario again, listen. This is something people have said about the 2016 finals, is if you played that finals 10 times, the Warriors win that 9 times. It's just that in our universe, this was the one time the Cavaliers were able to win that series. I think that's the same for Chris Middleton and big shots. I think if he takes 10 big shots, he probably makes it once or twice, and we just happen to see him make this run once or twice. But I don't even think he did not make a Kyrie type 2016 final shot. And I think he will need to have some just insane plays from probably iso ball at some point in the playoffs next year. Listen, he's gonna have to be at least as good as Kyrie was in 2016 this upcoming year if he's gonna play KD and Harden Nets, not to mention Irving. So I don't trust the Bucks when it comes down the stretch, even though they just won the finals.
Look, I mean, do I have supreme confidence in Chris Middleton? No, but yeah, I think you're kind of forgetting the games that happened last year. And look, was he hitting the game-winning shots? No, but the shots that were under 2 minutes where they needed a bucket, he was getting those shots and he was making them. I mean, it was impressive to watch. He was making tough shots, pull-up J's in people's faces, really ridiculous shots. And again, I think Giannis can actually – I think they can both close. I think Giannis can be a closer. We did see it a little bit in the finals last year. I mean, he was incredible in the finals, obviously, last year. But I think Middleton was making big shots throughout the playoffs last year. I mean – he's made some big shots as well at other points in his career. I think that he really can be that type of guy. Is he always going to be the most consistent guy in a game? You know, there's going to be games where he's going to be 8 for 23. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw that last year in the finals. But, I mean, there's going to also be games where he's hitting those big shots at the end, and that's really what you need him for. So I have confidence in this Bucks team. I think it probably will be the Bucks and Nets in the conference finals. And we'll see it at that point. Maybe Irving's all the way back, and they're completely unstoppable at that point. That could easily be the case, but I
don't want you like going back on the
I'm not
Bucks.
Going back on it all. I'd still go with the Bucks.
What if tomorrow Irving gets the vaccine?
I'd still be confident in the Bucks.
What happened?
I'd be confident in the Bucks.
Did you get brainwashed and see in Blender or something like?
Well. How do you know Irving's not going to do something like this again? Maybe he just disappears.
I'm not saying I would pick the Nets without Irving.
Maybe Irving just doesn't play as well. I mean, look, besides 2016, it's not like he's played amazing other than that.
He hasn't.
I mean, he hasn't played that. I mean, that was really that one series. Other than that, he really hasn't done much. So
if you told me right now that if Irving retired tomorrow, I would still be picking the Nets. And I think a lot of it falls on Chris Middleton's shoulders. He made some big shots, but he also missed some shots last year. And he did not have the type of run that instills confidence in me, like saying, all right, this guy is now the closer for the next 10 years for Giannis, and they're going to be a perennial finals team, similar to LeBron, similar to what would have been with LeBron and Kyrie had Kyrie not been the Antonio Brown of the NBA. I don't know. I can't. It's tough for me to.
Well, you can't say that because Giannis doesn't have a jump shot. That's the reason why you can't say it. Because those other guys, a Harden to a KD or a Kyrie to a LeBron, those guys have a jump shot and can take that final shot. Giannis doesn't have that, and maybe he will. Maybe at the end, some point this year, maybe next year, maybe he just never will. So it's hard to always say that about this situation, but yeah, I mean, look, he missed a couple shots last year. I mean, of course he's gonna miss shots. Everyone misses shots, but
he just didn't. I just don't think he was not consistent.
I really think that this team is, I think they're on a path to meet with the Nets, and I really give them a really good shot in that series. And like I said, I would pick them over the Nets, and in the finals, I'd probably still pick the Lakers. But
so what happened though from last year to this year? Is it just Kyrie essentially?
The Nets?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a couple things. I mean, last year, I think it's really more so with the Bucks that last year I had the same questions that you still have with the Bucks. Is the Giannis question, which I think in my mind he answered. Middleton, I think he at least answered some of those questions. We'll keep seeing as this season goes along. But Holiday answered some questions as well without his key defensive plays, and just he had one good game in the finals, but it was a huge game. I think that that really at least had somewhat of an effect on me. And the Nets, look, I've supreme confidence in KD, but Harden's always been bad in the playoffs. We'll see what happens with him. Irving, again, is he going to play? Is he going to be injured? Is he just going to disappear? Who knows? So I think there's just a lot more questions with the Nets than there are with the Bucks, and I'd rather go with the team that has less questions.
I guess we just see I just think we see the playoffs completely differently then. I was right about a lot of the playoffs in terms of predictions, but I think last year stirred up some more questions about the Bucks, specifically Middleton, Holiday too. I mean, Holiday had a bad playoffs. He did not have a good playoffs. I know they won the finals, but listen, they got to play, I don't even need to say it, Nets with no, I'm just going to save it. And the Suns in the finals. So I think that kind of.
But they were down 2-0 to the Suns in the finals. I mean, I think we may forget that they had to win 4 straight games.
Listen, if anything, that supports my argument because the Suns are not a finals team this year. They're just not.
No, the Suns aren't a finals team this year. But even still, you're down 2-0 in the finals. You win 4 straight to win. I mean, that has to be something.
Our SD card just filled up in storage, so it just cut off. But I'll get back to what I was saying. I think Giannis answered those questions in the finals. I have full faith in him and everything that he can do. Like, I don't have questions about him taking over in the playoffs or anything. The only question I still have about him is, like shooting closing ability, like being able to shoot any three pretty much consistently, especially down the stretch. But I mean, that's going to be a question. I don't think he has to answer that question. Like, that's not a question that I'm like, wow, this is, causing the Bucks to lose whatever. But I think for Middleton and Holiday's case, I still don't trust Holiday in the playoffs. I don't think last year proved anything for him. Middleton, listen, is he better than I thought he was? Maybe. But I don't, like, overall, Middleton at large I don't have a problem with. But Middleton as a closer and the second best player in this Bucks team and the guy that needs to make shots down the stretch consistently to win you a finals, I don't think he can do it. And I don't think he proved that last year that he can, to be honest. Consistently. Listen, he did it last year, but I think you look at a year like 2013 Red Sox, like we just talked about, a relatively fluke year, and I think that's what you could be looking at for the Bucks right now. Not as fluky, like, listen, Giannis is not Mike Napoli, but
I don't know. I mean, look, I see what you're saying and stuff, but I feel like you're just not giving enough credit to what happened last year. And again, you could say the opponents, the injuries of other teams and everything, but you still have to beat who you got to beat. And for them to be down in a lot of these series and to be against a lot of adversity where they had to make big shots and make big plays, they did it. So I don't see why there's not a reason they couldn't do it again. Now, easily could they fail the next year? Sure. But right now I have confidence in them to do it again. And we'll see again. The regular season doesn't matter in the NBA at all, especially for teams like this. So we're not going to see this for 5 months or whatever. But I really think at this point right now, I have confidence in the Bucks to beat the Nets and make the finals. And
we both have Lakers.
We both have the Lakers winning. Yeah, I mean, I was
no, I don't have the Lakers winning.
Oh, you have the Lakers winning? Okay, but we do.
I do have a prediction written down. Well, okay, I guess I got kind of just spoil it. I'm not going to go on the record though with a. Well, do I?
Might as well.
Yeah,
Well, what is this? Is this a finals winner?
I have Lakers Nets finals.
What's this prediction that you wrote down?
Well, you can read it if you want. But I wrote the outcome of the series and the games.
Okay.
Okay. I have Nets in 6 written down. I don't want to go. I mean, I guess I'm already on the record. I don't want that to be official though. I mean, are we doing are you gonna pick a winner and how many games or no?
I mean, if you want to, I'll do one, but I was not planning on it.
Okay, then we're not. I'll just say this. That's what I have written down, but I just kind of wrote that down just thinking. But that's not my on-the-record prediction or anything. But if you held the gun to my head right now and said, make the correct finals prediction winner and, you'll get to live or whatever, that's what my prediction would be. But I'm not, officially official on that, so we'll see. But
okay, but you do have the Nets, and yeah, I would go with the Lakers. So we'll see what happens.
What a surprise! The Lakers get Russell Westbrook and Brandon is all over.
Well, I mean, I also did pick them to make the finals last year. I didn't have them winning, but I did have them to make it.
I just all of a sudden this anti-Nets narrative. I'm just trying to think why is he? What happened? And you're telling me this, blah blah blah. Chris Middleton. Maybe it's
we'll see who's right at the end of the day. I mean,
maybe it's just Russell Westbrook.
I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I'm just kidding.
I guess just quickly, so we will wrap this up in the next couple minutes, but just the Lakers out of the West. Obviously, we spent a lot of time on the East. Just looking at the West as a whole, there's just not a team that can really challenge them, in my opinion. You look at the Jazz, and I think the Suns actually will be pretty decent this year. Will they be as good as they were last year? Probably not, but I think they'll still be in there. Neither of those teams can match up with them when they're healthy. The Lakers, obviously. The Clippers, no Kawhi. If he even comes back, they're not going to be. There's no way that they could beat them, in my opinion. The Nuggets, they have no Murray. They're not as good, anyways. The Warriors, the Blazers, a Grizzlies, whoever. I don't think there's really another team that can compete with them in the playoffs. Again, the regular season, they land where they land. I don't think that's a problem. But when the playoffs start and they're healthy, there's no team that can beat them, in my opinion. right now, especially with the injuries that other teams have. Again, even if Kawhi comes back, like he's not going to be 100% anyways, and he just missed a full season of playing with that team. So I just think it's a weird situation there.
I think out of all the teams in the West, who's most likely to beat the Lakers? I would either go Clippers or Suns, I think.
I don't know.
But I don't have faith in
I wouldn't. I'm not confident.
I'm not confident in either of those teams either. I'm just, if you made me pick a team if you told me the Lakers lose in the playoffs, guess which team beat them? I would guess one of those teams. I like the Nuggets this year. The only reason I don't love them as much as I like the Lakers is because if your three best players are Jokic, Murray, and Porter, where is your defense going to be coming from? At least down the stretch when you need to guard a LeBron or a Westbrook or an AD. I just think that's going to be very tough for the Nuggets, although I do think they have potential to be the 1 seed this year. So
the Nuggets,
I think they have potential.
I don't know about.
Listen,
that.
I don't think it's going to be the Lakers.
I don't think it'll be the Lakers either. I just don't think I don't think there's a shot it's the Nuggets.
If it's not those two teams, listen, I'm not telling you it's a lock to be the Nuggets. I'm just saying they have potential to.
Yeah, no, I just think that they're probably in the middle of the pack somewhere.
I think that they're more likely in the middle of the pack than the 1 seed. But listen, I said potential. I did not.
No, yeah. It just like if I were to say potential teams, it just wouldn't be one of the teams I'd throw out there. I mean, I think it's probably gonna be the Jazz again. To be honest, they're such a regular season team that it's not even funny. It's not even close.
It could be the Jazz, but they're due for an injury.
What'd you say?
I said listen, I'm not hoping they get it. I'm just saying they're due for an injury.
Like, I mean, Mitchell did get injured last year. He did miss a month.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know.
I think the only way, honestly, is whether Mitchell actually gets injured. But let's say Mitchell stays healthy. If Gobert gets injured, they'll still be good defensively, but they lose for a regular season. And obviously we talked about it during the Defensive Player of the Year talk, but that affects you in the regular season because he is a force in the regular season defensively. That would affect them because again they don't really have a backup big. I mean, Derek Favors. I mean, he's not. That's not really a backup big right there. So that would be in trouble for them. But I mean, it really does look like it'd be them. I really wouldn't be surprised if it was the Suns, to be honest. But we'll see about that as well. But yeah, I really think it could be like the same as last year, where you have the Jazz and the Suns up top. I think if Kawhi was healthy, if Kawhi never got injured, I would be tempted to go Clippers. Maybe not even just 1 seed, but for like a Clippers Lakers, I would be tempted to almost go with the Clippers if Kawhi never got injured. But if he comes back, he's coming back when the playoffs start. So yeah, or even maybe a round in, because again, he didn't get the surgery till a month later, which was already an extended playoff. So it's just like, when is he actually even going to come back?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm not picking the Clippers either, but this West at the top seems a little bit weaker than typical. So,
but it's more that middle of the pack that's
where
it's better than the East, I would say.
No, I agree. And I do think, like, out of the middle of the pack West teams, like, one of those teams will prevail as like a team that can challenge the Lakers. I think. I just don't know which it will be. Like, I think the Nuggets could. I mean, like, they would need Porter to win MIP. They would need Murray to come back healthy and be what he was in the playoffs. They would need Jokic to be what he was last year. But if that all happens, then listen, I would probably still pick the Lakers. But that's a legitimate team because you have a top 20 player in Murray, a top 25 player in Porter, and a top 5 player in Jokic. So
yeah, I think it would be all on the shoulders of Porter because he would have to be like that type of guy. He'd have to be a like solidified number 2 guy and not just this like inconsistent, can show you flashes, but most of the time isn't. He'd have to be like a really solid number 2, and then when Murray comes back, Murray would be the 3, obviously, and he'd give you like 17 to 20 points, and then Porter and Jokic are your that's your offense right there. But that's still a lot of questions as well.
No, it is. I think one of the teams, whether it's the Warriors, whether it's the Mavericks, whether it's the Nuggets, whether it's the Clippers somehow, whether it's the Suns, I think one of those teams will prevail as like the challenger to the Lakers, and the other ones will kind of just battle with each other. We'll see who it ends up being. I think the Lakers will have a kind of a tough road, but honestly, listen, I know a lot of people love LeBron. Is it unfair to say that, like, obviously he had a bunch of easy roads in the East, and now that he's in the West is starting to get weaker? I mean, is that like an unfair take to have? Because technically he came to the West and he proved that he can win a championship because he had so many people saying, well, the East is so weak. But I do think that's a fair take. So,
Well, I think it's I guess potentially. I think the only thing so first year he's there, he gets injured. Even if they would have made the playoffs, they wouldn't have done anything. The team just wasn't good enough. But then the next year when they actually win the championship, you have the bubble. So that just affected so many teams. Who knows if that's just a regular season, what the playoffs actually happen and what it looks like.
If the Lakers do not make the finals this year, and let's just say LeBron plays 50 games, AD looks like he's injured every other game, like typically what we see from AD, Westbrook's not great, then I think you can look back on the bubble year and say the bubble legitimately was the reason they won the finals.
I think people could say that. Right before the bubble, or right before it's everything shut down, they were playing better, but they really weren't the best team, to be honest. I mean, they definitely had competition. So yeah, I think it definitely helped them though that they went to the bubble.
I mean, yeah, out of all the players to get out of all the players in the NBA, out of the top 100 players in the NBA, which players would benefit the most from getting a 4-month break leading up to the postseason, essentially? I mean, AD and LeBron would be in the top 10 of those players, So.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna try to take that championship away from them. That's if I'm a doubter, if I'm a hater on LeBron, that's my take. Is listen, you still need to prove that was a legit championship.
Yeah, for sure. Then last year they were both injured as well. So in the one, this would be the really if they stay healthy, it'll be the first real season, honestly. But we'll see. I mean, those were our award predictions, our final predictions. Like we said, we talked NFL at the beginning, MLB in the middle, and then NBA at the end. NBA season starts the 19th. Obviously football is going to keep going on. There was hockey. Hockey just started. Yeah. I watched some of it. It's on ESPN and TNT now, so that's different to see it on there. But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that if something comes up. But yeah, it's mostly NBA, MLB, and NFL. But yeah, the game obviously we're looking at is Cowboys-Pats. Next week when we do our Cowboys and Patriots episodes, it's going to be together, and we're going to talk about the game. That'll be fun to just focus on that one game, and hopefully we're talking about a Cowboys win and a Patriots loss.
I guess we'll see. Yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm just hoping for a good game. Anyways, though, that's it. Appreciate everybody who stayed to the end of the video. Feel free to check out social medias, all that. Eclipse channel in the description. Like Brandon said, me and him, Patriots, Cowboys episodes, other stuff, NBA talk on that channel as well. But yeah, we'll be back Sunday night.